So I'd like to now invite our first speaker. That's going to be Carl Byers to come up to the stage.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Christine. Good morning, everyone. Again, just a quick reminder, I'm Carl Byers with Ingrain Corporation. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer with the company focusing on business development, new product development, and that type of thing. I'm going to talk to you a little bit this morning about use cases and the importance of selecting your use cases for AR adoption to truly get penetration and adoption and acceptance across the organization. Arguably, it's probably one of the most important things to do when you're looking at an AR application is figure out what it's going to do to be able to maximize the potential for success. There are a lot of roadblocks, a lot of hiccups, a lot of challenges within enterprise organizations, especially large-scale ones. And choosing the use cases and getting the buy-in across the organization is fundamental to achieving success in that process. I'm presenting a combination of work that includes contributions from other area members as well. Electric Power Research Institute, John Simmons has contributed to this, as has Jay Kim from Apex Labs. So this is a bit of a compilation of some thoughts and presentations and the sharing of the approaches to use case selection across organizations. Okay. So use case selection in large organizations is particularly important because there's a lot of barriers, right? AR as a technology is fundamentally an IT technology that spans multiple domains across an organization. The IT department likes to own AR technology. Human performance organizations like to own AR technology. Training organizations like to own it. Production and deployment people like to own it. So where does it sit within the enterprise? And who is going to own this process? Who is going to kind of be migrating through the barriers across the company becomes particularly important. For anybody that's actually implemented an IT change initiative within an organization, the aspects of software and platform-based implementations can truly create challenges, right? So when you look at the use cases, finding the right use cases that speed adoption, speed acceptance can kind of move through some of these hurdles again becomes particularly important. What are some of the interesting and unique things about AR is, as we show here, not only is AR a software platform that needs to be deployed, but it's also a hardware platform. Whether you're running on mobile tablets or wearable devices, you add a level of complexity to IT department integration at that point. You're not just trying to deploy a new software platform that integrates to enterprise systems in some way. You're actually having to deal with hardware and device implementations, and that brings another level of concern relative to security, platform acceptance, and that type of thing. So, and the methods of mobile device management, network security, authentication, and the processes that implements or that triggers within an IT department becomes, in our experience, and I would say the experience of other members, a level of complexity well beyond normal software integration. Okay, software integration is hard enough in an enterprise. Moving to this level makes it a lot harder. So as soon as you start to bring this up and IT gets engaged, the first question is stop. Actually, the first statement is stop. So how do you actually engage those organizations in an effective way becomes particularly important. Okay. Again, this is a new capability in general across an organization. It's additive in that it is generally implementing and integrating to an existing capability. However, because of its new instantiation of capabilities and technologies, you've got these other two items at the bottom here. The user training model. That usually is something that comes up, whether it's within the corporate training organization or whether it's in the IT organization. How will this be used? How will it be rolled out? Who will be trained? How will they be trained? And all that type of thing. And by extension, what's the integration and support model? The software support model, the hardware support model, the process by which the stuff is maintained and automatically updated in the future. And that's not just the AR elements to it, but also the connectivity to the rest of the enterprise. How do you make sure that whatever you get out onto the device is current and relevant constantly, right? So again, the broader aspects of general IT support come into play here, and the process of kind of user acceptance adoption in terms of usability with training and activities also becomes pretty fundamental. That's not easy, right? So those are barriers that get put up pretty easy pretty early when you are trying to kind of start to talk about AR within a broader deployment opportunity, right? So that's different if you're just doing a quick, okay, we're doing a research project over here. It's sandboxed. It's not going to touch anything. But the moment you move from sandbox to start talking about the real world, then all of these issues raise their heads pretty quickly. Okay? In choosing the use case, one of the things that we find, and I would argue that most of us have found, is finding the opportunities that drive IRR, ROI, depending on return of investment, internal rate of return, are particularly important. Again, because this is a technology that can be truly transformational. And because you have barriers across the enterprise, being able to identify what the outcomes of that are going to be, what the benefits are going to be, becomes particularly important. Because those are the decision processes that drive other people to reduce barriers. IT departments and other organizational groups. One of the things that we focused on a lot is really not just the pure IRR for an initial installation, but also what the broader implementation, the implication is this. So if you apply augmented reality into a specific application, let's say field support for one specific piece of device, that's nice, that will have an ROI. But is there a way that you can reuse that fundamental capability integration across multiple things? So does that apply on the manufacturing floor as well? Now, does that apply for multiple subsystems? The more you can broaden it out, and both horizontally and vertically, obviously, the higher the ROI. No surprise there. This goes back to the use cases then. Right? So again, a single use case is good. The connection to multiple use cases that are complementary and integrated and adopted reuse and approaches to interoperability across the organization increases the value, increases the potential for a return on investment that's much larger, pulls you up higher into the organization from an approval point of view, and gets wider adoption. One of the things that, in a specific example, that we're working in the energy organizations right now, we had an initial kind of focus on a small AR pilot program. But that quickly migrated to a $36 million investment in enterprise improvement technologies. Okay? And this is an important nuance here. So from a small pilot moving to a $36 million implementation, that was then identifying roughly between $500,000 and $600 million in benefits over a 4-year period. That was no longer an AR program. It was an enterprise operational improvement initiative of which AR became a very foundational component from a revolutionary change management point of view. Okay? And we see that multiple times. So AR is often looked at as the initial pilot use case in some ways, but then people say, oh, this is really cool. This has much broader implications. This affects the way we train. This affects the way we deploy. This affects the way we manage our CAD data and our other types of enterprise data. It now becomes a much better integrated story of integrated data management and productivity improvement across the organization. And being able to incorporate that as part of the implementation in the use case becomes pretty foundational, especially when you're talking large-scale change management across an organization. Okay? But where do you start? All right, so let's pull that back. That's really nice because that's big picture stuff. It gets access to the big funds and starts to reduce the corporate barriers and gets high-level kind of SVP buy-in into the processes. But where do you start? What's that initial purpose? And this we find is really, it's unique to each organization, where we find the entry point is a range of places. Somebody's doing initial exploration. They've heard about this and they would like to explore it some way. They've heard about the magic of AR. And it's an initial pilot towards an exploration in terms of what's the human implementation, what's the productivity improvement potential of this. Not ready for deployment, but trying to get broader user feedback. The second one is research, purely a research initiative where this is in the lab, it's sandboxed, and people are digging into the complexity of hardware, software, user interfaces, new techniques and technologies. So it's just in the innovation group and the research intergroup, and that is a group that feeds into the rest of the organization over the course of a 5-year kind of evolutionary process. The other one we find is the initial user testing. So they've actually moved farther along. They've done some research. They've done some initial kind of exploration. And now they're saying, okay, this is nice. We know that there's something here. We know that there are some challenges with the deployment, but we want to get it out to real people in the field, given its warts and all, to get some real feedback in terms of will this be something that they actually use, right? Getting into the hands of real users doing real things. At each of those levels, the acceptance of technical risks, technical challenges, kind of streamlined user interfaces and all that type of thing are very different. And approaching the use case in each of those ways, in each case in a different way, becomes really fundamental. There is no one size fits all for this. Ultimately, tying this all together is the focus on the business value, right? Started with that, the use cases and everything there. I mean, AR as a technology, it's cool. Don't get kind of get diverted by the shiny lights, right? Ultimately, and from a business point of view, it needs to deliver value. Right? And what's that value? There's three that we see all the time. You can probably add more to that list, but the three foundational ones are improved productivity, either associated with reduced human error or faster response times, that type of thing. Improved production rates, meaning no downtime, no unplanned downtime, no human error-induced lost production rates, particularly in the oil and gas industry, and human safety. Safety also includes accreditation and validation of activities for I can't think of the word. For clients, yes. Thank you very much. Yes, for compliance. Thank you. So those are the three primary ones that we see. And again, there's sub areas there, and you might see some others. But again, focusing on the business value, you can add numerics to each of these. And again, that generates and drives the IRR. So moving away from this is cool, this is neat, and I'd like to explore some of this to this is something that will change our business and deliver bottom line returns, top line returns, or reduce human error is pretty fundamental. Okay. This is a slide from Apex Labs that I particularly like because, again, it highlights this, and all of these slides are going to be up and available, right? So you can spend some time looking over these in the details as we go. On the bottom line here, there's fundamental kind of elements of enterprise environments, right? So everything from what's the network like to what's the competency level of the workforce and what kind of work are they doing and what kind of software environments do they have. And you can actually kind of do some comparisons around that to look at that and frame the nature of the enterprise to be able to say what are the key points that we want to focus on that actually drive value within the organization. Obviously, in the third one there, if there's large differences between expert and novice performance, the more you can give performance aids in situ, the better off they'll be, and a direct impact on productivity and production. Right, driving a strong value prop. Other areas you can see, again, if everybody's experienced AR, battery life is an issue, performance is an issue in the field. So the ways that you can look at use cases that actually improve your ability to perform for longer periods of time in the field, the better off you are. So places where there's bursty communication or inconsistent or asynchronous access actually drives higher value in some cases for the use case. But this is a set of metrics that I think is very interesting, very usable when you're looking at individual things. Say, is this use case overall a consistent use case that drives value and can be successful, most importantly, given the current constraints of AR? Okay. The last one that was mentioned there is that enterprise data sources. Are there enterprise data sources ready and prepared to integrate? You know, every organization has a whole slew of data. Everything from real-time data sensors coming off industrial internet sensors and historical SCADA systems, a whole slew of alphabet soup of enterprise data, data stores of various types, most of which are disconnected from each other, most of which exist in silos, most of which are protected by fiefdoms that don't like to talk to each other, although everybody generally talks about integrating across their silos, but most of which are underutilized, right? So there's a question there. Everybody knows the data is available, but is it available in the format and the way that you actually need it? And are you talking to the right person to get access to that data? Again, IT owns that sometimes, MRO departments own that sometimes, safety organizations own that sometimes. Where's the data and how do you get access to it, right? How do you connect to it? So this isn't just about writing a software interface to grab data. This is about validating the data is actually available to you in the way that you need it. Okay? The other type of use case issue here is really once you've defined the use case and the objective, and you know that some data is available to you, what do you want to use it for? And there's kind of 4 primary use cases that I would just say. And you could probably, again, group them in different ways if you choose. So in general, your AR system is designed to inform, to guide, to collect, or compare. And what I mean by each of those is inform as I'm giving somebody information so that they know what their situation is in situ, right? Guiding is actually walking them through a process. So typical field-based performance support stuff that you see all the time is a guiding scenario. Do this, turn that, adjust that type of thing, right? Collecting, I'm just referring to that, is basically getting information back from the field. So whether that is taking a picture or whether that is recording a procedure or whether that is gathering other types of data from the live information that is involved with the procedure, that's information that comes back to the enterprise system, right? So keep in mind that AR is bidirectional, right? It's not just information delivery, it's information collection as well, right? And then comparing is a very interesting use case as well, which is slightly different than the others. That is going out to something and say, is this installed properly? Is this installed within tolerance? On the manufacturing floor, from a QA point of view, are all of the, is everything drilled the way it's supposed to be drilled, adjusted the way it's supposed to be drilled, and doing automatic differencing associated with that and using augmented reality to do the comparing and contrasting and presenting that information to the user, the supervisor, or QA. Again, most AR applications include a grouping of these four. And you can use your own terms, but in general, they're fairly consistently incorporating that. As you define the use case now, you find the data, you define your broader IRR, the next question to some extent is, so how do I actually present this? Is it truly an AR environment? Is it a mixed reality environment that incorporates some VR in some ways? Is it an assisted reality environment where I'm just providing overlays because my environment is going to be too messy to do true AR? Again, these are all kind of steps along the continuum. And I guess my general recommendation, even though we're here to talk AR all the time and all that, is there are a range of these things that helps get people the information that they need. Right? And AR is very foundational and integrated to that, but there's places that it's not going to work. So how do you blend it and provide kind of a fail-safe fallbacks to other types of methodologies? Like, so you can fall back to virtual if necessary. You can fall back to assisted if necessary, so that the system doesn't fail if the lighting goes to crap. Right? How do you make sure that this is a continuously usable system that will constantly engage and deliver value to the user? Right? And don't get necessarily enamored by the fact that it's technology. It's really about the user and the impact in the user using technology in an effective way. Okay. A couple of the other things to consider in terms of supporting data to support the use case. So we've got a bunch of issues here around security and roles. Let's start with that one. So this is not about enterprise security. This is about individual security and roles. Competency and role-based access to information. What do you need? Who needs it? How do they need it? How does what I need different from what you need, and my security levels and competency levels change the way that information is delivered to me? Do you consider that as part of your use case, or do you just gloss over it? Most organizations, it's pretty fundamental in terms of how they actually employ people and give information to users. And again, if you're trying to give users the right information at the right time, you don't want to overload them with stuff that's either above or below their competency levels. Location accessibility is a simple one. Where is it going to be used? Is it out in the field somewhere where there's no Wi-Fi, no satellite, no nothing? So we need to take a different strategy to data delivery. Or is it somewhere that's highly connected and easily accessible? So we can either stream or synchronize. We can do different types of data accessibility methods. Level of aggregation in the information that's supporting it. So going back to that enterprise data, all the data stores, all of the live data, all of the, everything from CAD to ERP to inventory management systems, what's the level of aggregation that you need that information at? Right? Do you care at the bolt level, at the screw level, or at the assembly or sub-assembly level, or is it the whole system level? That obviously affects how much data you either have on device or are trying to stream to the device. And these are all kind of very integrated things. Lots of data trying to stream in a place that you can't stream, big issue, right? So how do you kind of contain the use case, at least initially, so that you know you can be successful, but then expand and grow, or plan to expand and grow with your enterprise relationships, right? Portability, performance, that's fairly clear. Everybody knows that most, especially wearable devices, have battery life issues still, especially when you're trying to drive them pretty hard. So, what is the device that you're driving in this to? Is it a tablet? Is it a wearable device, head worn or wrist worn, or some other type of environment? Do you have battery issues? Do you have power issues? Can you hot swap? All that kind of thing. Incorporating that into the use case consideration becomes fundamental. Right? Consistency and relevance, and this is really where it all, I think, boils down to for me, is making sure that the information that you're delivering is consistent and it's relevant. Right? So making sure that your data has been scrubbed so that you actually are delivering information to your users that they can trust. If they can't trust it, they won't use it, no matter how well it works or how much value they think from a technology point of view or how cool it is. So the relevance of the information to their current need and the consistency to which they know that that information is actually coming from a reliable and authoritative source that they can go with is really important. So let's consider the real world for a second. Okay, so that's really nice. You've done this academic exercise of defining a really cool use case, right? And you've considered all of those things, and then you realize this is where we're operating, right? So that's nice. We're not talking about the lab. We're not talking about a factory floor where we can set up a whole bunch of specialized lighting. We're talking about this, right? And we're talking about this during the day and at dusk, and maybe with fog, and maybe with snow, right? Will it work? Why are you even thinking about it if it's not going to work, right? You can just see, anybody who's had direct experience with AR knows there's a lot of factors that affect the ability to do automatic recognition, tracking, computer vision techniques, all that type of thing. So choosing, again, the use cases that are initially going to be successful becomes really important. So do I want to choose a use case that's going to be here at nighttime? Maybe not. Right? I want to get here eventually. So what's my pathway to get from the current state of technology to where it could be while I show the value along that path? Okay? Or I'm this guy out in the field, right? Okay. No Wi-Fi, no nothing, satellite, no connection. My equipment's all messy, it's dirty. So doing automatic recognition and tracking off, it's a bit of a challenge. What data am I collecting? How consistent can it be? Or in a factory floor where there's a lot of dynamic activity, what information do I really want to collect and distribute? Okay? So really those things of lighting, equipment consistency, dust, dirt, grease, geolocation, positioning, what information do I have? How can I present it? Is it going to be effective? Becomes really an important part of that use case. So remember, if you go back to the drawing of the hills and mountains, that incorporates a lot of that thinking. It's like, so is this an environment, is this going to be a use case that is both effective and successful, particularly from an initial implementation point of view? So just wrapping up, 2 slides. So recommendations across this. So we've talked a lot about the kind of the complexities of getting access to data, getting access to information, finding ways is this actually going to be deployable. But let's focus on the users here, right? Do you have access to the subject matter expert that actually can make this successful and can drive your AR use case in an effective way that actually bounds what's going to be delivered and will resonate with the end user? We've seen multiple times where you get a initial pilot implementation, but it doesn't incorporate the subject matter expert into the process. So you roll it out and you get it out to them, and they say, yeah, it's not quite what we do. Right? We do something else this way. Why are you even thinking about this, right? You've obviously had a massive disconnect in that. So actually, and that's different from the champion, right? Because the champion is often either a technological champion or a production champion, but they're often also very disconnected from the field, whether that is a field worker or whether that's somebody that's doing their job on the factory floor. So making sure the combination of the champion subject matter expertise are well understood and well adopted as part of the use case becomes really important, okay? Framing it, we've talked about that pretty much for most of this. Framing it for success becomes what you need to do, and really looking at techniques to be able to automate and reduce the cost of the development. Because again, if this is a 5-year AR development prototype exercise, not many people are going to be interested, especially if it involves a whole bunch of content redevelopment as part of that process. So how can you implement and redevelop and reuse existing content from CAD, from ERP, from data that's in the organization and push it out in new ways to enhance the existing processes that already exist in the organization, drive success. Okay? So just to wrap up, some take-homes there. Enable the SME and keep the end user in focus. AR is about human performance, ultimately. It's about making somebody work better, safer, and more effectively. Keeping that end user in focus is really foundational to successful implementations of any IT change, and AR is an example of that. Okay? Reuse the content that exists and optimize for performance. So optimize performance of the system in their appropriate use cases and for the individual in the world that they want to work in. And really, underlying all of this is focus on business value, right? And again, take the effort to define what the broader business value is to the organization. It pays off in spades because, again, this is something that roadblocks get thrown up very quickly, and the more you've got IRRs and ROIs that really demonstrate returns across an organization, not just in a little pocket, the higher the probability of success. Okay? I'll leave it there. Okay? Thank you very much. I'm going to pass it over.